In the last class, we quickly went through the global expansion of democracy. In this video, we'll look at 1. Phases in the expansion of democracy, 2. Democracy at the global level, and 3. Dilemma of democratic promotion. Before going into the lesson, if you find this video useful, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. We'll study the expansion of democracy by dividing it into 3 phases. In the initial phase, we talk about how the idea of democracy came about and spread. This is mainly attributed to the French Revolution of 1789. But note that it was not the first time people put up a struggle for democracy. The idea of democracy came up in Britain much before the French Revolution, but it was a gradual process. It did not inspire popular struggle like French Revolution did. The British colonies in North America got independent in 1776, which is about the same time as French Revolution. And which countries did these colonies together form? Yes, the United States of America. USA adopted a democratic constitution in 1787. But the right to vote was limited to very few men. But in a proper democracy, as you all know, voice of all its citizens must be heard, not just that of a selected group of people. In the 19th century, the struggles for democracy focused on political equality, freedom, and justice. In most countries, certain sections of the society, like women, did not have the right to vote. Thus, universal adult franchise, or the right of every adult citizen to vote, was a major demand. The second phase in the expansion of democracy was accelerated by the Second World War and the end of colonialism. Many former British colonies, like our country, chose the path of democracy after gaining independence. But that was not always the case. For example, Ghana used to be a British colony named Gold Coast till it gained independence in 1957, inspiring other African countries to struggle for freedom. Kwame Nkrumah, an active member of the freedom struggle, became the Prime Minister and then the President of Ghana. Later, he declined the democratic path and elected himself as president for life, only to be overthrown by the military in 1966. Like this, many countries that became democracies couldn't make that last. Now, let us come to the third and recent phase. The third phase was accelerated by the fall of Soviet Union by the end of 1980s. Many countries were freed from Soviet influence. The constituent republics in the Soviet Union emerged as independent countries. India's neighborhood was also not politically stable during this period. Countries like Nepal and Pakistan alternated between democratic and non-democratic rule to finally become democratic as of now. There are many countries which are still not democratic. There are also countries which exist as democracies for namesake only. They are not true democracies. Yet, the overall trend is that the number of democracies is increasing all over the world. But does that mean that we are moving towards a better democratic relation among countries? Do we have a world democracy? Well, sort of. We do not have a world government looking over all countries. What we have are such institutions in which world countries are members. The most prominent such institution in the world level is the United Nations or UN. UN is a global association of nations of the world. It ensures that there is a better cooperation and harmony among nations in international law, security, economic development, and social equity. UN Secretary General is the Chief Administrative Officer. UN Security Council is a body of the United Nations which is responsible for maintaining peace and security among countries. Similarly, the International Monetary Fund or IMF and the World Bank gave financial support to nations after checking upon certain criteria. But are these institutions truly democratic? As of now, there are 193 nations. The UN General Assembly, which like our parliament, meets in regular yearly sessions to discuss and decide on various topics. In the General Assembly, each nation has one vote and the President of the Assembly is elected from among the representatives of the member countries. From this, you might be thinking that the UN is a very democratic institution. Well, the actual situation is very different. The extent of authority of General Assembly is limited. Decisions on critical matters such as conflicts between nations is decided upon by the Security Council. The Security Council consists of 15 members, 5 permanent and the rest 10 temporary. US, Russia, UK, France and China, they are the permanent members, and the temporary members are elected by the General Assembly for 2-year terms. If a decision has to be taken, it must have the approval of all the permanent members. They have veto power, which is like if at least one permanent member says no, then the decision is not approved. Similarly, in the case of International Monetary Fund, IMF, the value of the vote of member countries is dependent on how much money it has contributed to IMF. So we can see that the power in these organizations is concentrated on selected group of well-developed allied countries, especially USA. Think of it like the situation in which only the rich and influential people of our country takes decisions and the voice of the rest of citizens is sidelined. Speaking of this unbalance of power brings us to our next topic. Let us go to Iraq, a country in Western Asia, as you can see in this map here. Iraq gained independence from the British in 1932, but from 1979 it was under the dictatorship of this man Saddam Hussein after a series of coups. Saddam Hussein's government performed many radical reforms, abolishing traditional Islamic laws and giving women the right to vote and such. But the government suppressed all opposition, most of the times using muscle power. Many ethnic minorities were also massacred. So USA and its allies like Britain, in the name of promoting democracy, invaded Iraq, occupied it and removed Saddam Hussein from power in 2003. It set up an interim government there. The invasion couldn't properly be justified by the US and it was deemed illegal by UN. So, this brings us to the dilemma of democratic promotion. Is it fair if a democratic country invade a country in the name of establishing democracy, that too without seeking a global agreement on the matter? Is it okay to use democratic promotion in order to execute hidden agendas of powerful countries? Or fundamentally, is the use of external force to establish democracy in harmony with the spirit of democracy? These are all questions that should be with you even after you finish this lesson. Read about it, think about it, and form an opinion of your own. That's how politics should be learned. So that brings us to the end of discussion on this chapter. If you have any suggestion, please type it out in the comment box, and thank you.